So just what in the world is going on in the book of Revelation? Now, a lot of people have a lot of different views on this. Some see it as talking about the end times, or some people look at what's going on today and try to get insight from the book. Other people look at it as a history book of the church age. Other people think it doesn't have anything to do with our day, but just describing events that was happening in John's day. I'm not gonna really try to get involved in that debate, but what I wanna do is pull out some very important principles from the book of Revelation that can clearly be applied to our day and our lives. So in this video, I wanna talk about different ways to interpret prophecy, and also the overarching theme of the book of Revelation, which is clearly the reign of God and his directive for us to be overcomers in our lives and situations. Now, what are the different ways that people look at biblical prophecy? There are 4 different ways or schools of thought that people usually use to approach different prophecies. The first one is what is called the preterist view of prophecy, and this usually takes the prophecy and puts it in the past. It may not be the past to the prophet that was writing it, but it's definitely in the distant past for us. Usually they think that when a prophet prophesies something, he's talking about something that is in their immediate context. The other way that people look at it is what's called a futurist approach. And this is not only future for the prophet, but it's even future for us. This is when people look at a prophecy and they think that it is describing things in the very distant future, usually in terms of what we would call the end times. The third way that people look at prophecy is what is called the historicist approach. And this doesn't mean that it was talking about a past event or a future event, but they see the prophecy unfolding over time. So it can actually be referring to many different events that cover a very large period. The fourth way that people look at prophecy is what is called the allegorical approach. And what this does is it kind of spiritualizes the prophecy so that it's not even necessarily referring to physical events, but is actually just kind of using various imageries and poetic devices or whatever to give us a metaphor of what is happening in the spirit realm. Now, what we want to do when we are approaching the book of Revelation is pull out what we are calling prophetic principles. So we're not really trying to enter this debate, but we are trying to pull out the theological themes that the book is giving to us that can clearly apply to our lives, our day, but really could have been applied to every generation of Christians. Now, this is different than the allegorical approach because, like I said, usually the allegorical interpretation means that it is not referring to literal events. Where we acknowledge that it may be referring to literal events, we are just not really trying to discuss those. But once again, we want to pull out those prophetic principles that we can apply to our time and our life. Now, the main overarching themes of the book of Revelation are God's reign and his ultimate victory, and also the fact that we are supposed to be overcomers in our situations. Now, the book of Revelation was written to 7 actual churches that were present at John's time. John was writing each of them who were experiencing very unique situations, but he exhorted each and every one of them to be overcomers in their day. Now, in the beginning of the book of Revelation, as John is writing these churches and addressing their various circumstances, he gives to each of them various blessings that will be experienced by those who overcome. So I want to go over 7 different things that he writes to these 7 churches. What John says is that they will eat from the tree of life that is in the midst of paradise. They will not be hurt by the second death. They will be given hidden manna and a new name. They will be given power over the nations. They will be clothed in white garments and will not be blotted out from the book of life, and Jesus will confess their names before the Father and the angels. Jesus will also write on them the name of God, the new Jerusalem which comes out of heaven, and a new name. It will also be granted that they sit on Jesus Christ's throne, just as he overcame and sat on his Father's throne. Now, all of these things are toward the beginning of the book of Revelation, but at the end, in 21:7, it also culminates in this. It says, "He who overcomes shall inherit all things, and I will be his God, and he shall be my son." Mankind has a basic fear motivation. And this often causes us to want to know what is going to happen in the future. You can see this in the pagan world with things like psychics, fortune tellers, horoscopes. You see this in the media where you have like the economists and the politicians, or even like the weatherman telling us, what's going to happen in the future. But we see this in the church as well. And this is oftentimes why people misunderstand the book of Revelation and other biblical prophecies, because they are approaching the study through a spirit of fear, when in reality, it was written precisely to help us overcome any fears that we might have. It was written to show us that God is in control, He reigns, He will ultimately be victorious, and once again, He can empower His people to be overcomers in this life. That doesn't mean that things are not going to get hard, but it means that even in the midst of hardship, God can be with us and help us overcome. Isaiah chapter 60 says that darkness will cover the earth and gross darkness the people. But the people of God are supposed to arise and shine so that the glory of the Lord can be seen upon us. So the next time you're stressed out about what is either going on in the world or even in your own life, just remember that God is in control. He reigns in the affairs of heaven and in the affairs of earth. So if you'd like to learn more about the book of Revelation and how it applies to our lives today, I'd encourage you to go to callfromthemountain.com and pick up this book, The Descending New Jerusalem. It will explore a lot of the various things and give a lot of insight into how a lot of these, what I called prophetic principles, apply to our age today.